Scouts Wallach, Rinuk Laura Muñoz, Deshka Gash. These are my few Wiod words to welcome you on Wiod land. We are walking today on ancestral and today's land of the Wiods. Bienvenidos, bienvenidos a todos y todas a Migraciones. Hoy es el día en el que nos reunimos, mucha gente creativa, mucha gente de la comunidad, para caminar juntos. We're walking together. There is an invitation for all of you to just have a good time, enjoy the shared culture and the different cultures that form this rich community. Let's go.
David? Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Mi nombre es Fernanda. My name is Maria Fernanda Fragoso Calzada. And this is incredibly significant for me because I, as well, am an immigrant. So I hope to, I don't know, share a little bit about how much this means to us. Thank you. And it's in Spanish, so I apologize.
Never.
Nada.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mujeres migrantes, mujeres fuertes, mujeres que nos quitaron muy temprano. Hermanas, primas, madres y abuelas. Recordemos sus esfuerzos, sus triunfos y sus penas, y sigamos luchando por ellas. Recordémoslas en nuestras canciones, en nuestras tradiciones y en nuestras palabras con acciones. Gracias.
Hola compañeros, buenos días. Gracias a hoy que se dieron cita a este evento. Este día es un recordatorio a toda la gente inmigrante y mucha gente que viene de Centroamérica. Es un día muy especial para nosotros, que muchas personas venimos por necesidad y por la frontera ahí pasamos por muchas cosas, algunos ya no logramos pasar y la verdad ustedes como van caminando es para que tengan una reflexión que no es fácil para nadie, tanto para personas que son nacidas aquí. Todos estamos pasando por mucha lucha, muchas necesidades, pero en verdad hay muchos países que sufrimos ataques, hambres, secuestros, muchas cosas, y por eso muchos huimos del país, más que nada para proteger a la familia, ¿verdad? Y en este día, la verdad, es para reflexionar que no es fácil pasar en la frontera. Muchas mujeres mueren ahí, muchas mujeres son violadas, muchas mujeres callan, llegan aquí embarazadas y es un trauma para toda su vida. Entonces, les doy gracias que hayan venido aquí en esta caminata que llevan y disfrutemos un poco la naturaleza, ¿verdad? El jardín, las flores, la verdura, el clima muy hermoso en esta mañana, ¿verdad? La verdad estamos bien bendecidos nosotros en esta área porque es un clima muy bonito, no hace calor, no hace mucho frío y la verdad estamos bendecidos por Dios. Gracias.
So today is to remember everybody who we lost traveling, immigrating over here.
Dear family, dear relatives, before you continue your journey, I want you to repeat with me a name. Say Claudia.
Claudia.
Say it louder, Claudia.
Claudia.
Claudia is here. Claudia didn't die. Claudia is here. Claudia was murdered for the border patrol in the border in Texas, but she's here. She didn't die, and she is powering our fights for human rights. She is remembering to her 20 years old that she will never die until she rests in power, until she rests in justice. There is no one in jail because of the murder of Claudia, even if the agent was identified. This happened in 2018, and their parents in Guatemala still mourn Claudia. ¡Que viva Claudia!
Claudia.
This year, in 2022, it's been a record for the number of deaths of people migrating the U.S.-Mexican border. And we forget because of pandemic, and we forget because there is a vaccine, and we forget because we feel safe. But this year is a record year where more people is dying in that border. And this action of walking is an entire meditation reflection for you. I invite you to think of the people that is in right this minute trying to walk that border, that line. That so dangerous and risky line. It's a piece of land, and the land is one. There is no divisions in mother. There won't be ever if we believe it, if we protect it. I invite you to walk with that freedom, with that thoughts of justice. I invite you to remember Claudia every time we think of young women crossing that border and dying there. I invite you to think about it. How much more deaths are we going to permit? How much more deaths are we going to ignore? This year has been a record on those deaths. Let's feel free, but let's also be relatives on that fight. Let's protect sanctuary spaces. Let's protect immigrants. You guys don't need to travel until the border. You don't need to go to Tijuana. People from Oaxaca lives here. People from Guatemala lives here. People from the same town that Claudia lives here in Humboldt County. You just need to be relative. You need to be a good partner, a good friend, a good ally, and do every day an action to enhance the immigrants' rights, to make the color of skin disappear as a barrier, to make in your own heads and hearts enough space for keep walking. This day needs to repeat every day. Migrations Festival needs to be that appointment with us. No more deaths in the border. And let's erase those borders here. Thank you very much for dedicating this day for migrations and for visiting. ¡Viva!
Oh my goodness, it's today.
To choose love over fear. So let me be clear. I love you, my dear. Now some people say, when you give something away, you're bound to have less. Now please let me attest. Peace, love, and forgiveness will be our only business. All that I give is given to myself. Peace, love, and forgiveness will be our only business. All that I give is given to myself.
Thank you, Ponies of Harmony.
Think of all the things that make you smile.
I'm part of Humboldt Asians and Pacific Islanders in Solidarity, which is HOPI, otherwise known as HOPI. And I welcome all of you who've made this journey. And our story starts with the Chinese immigrants to Humboldt County in the late 1800s. It's a tale of 3 R's: resilience, resistance, and return. Please join us in hearing the unheard stories and perspectives of Humboldt's Chinese community from the past to the present. There are 9 different speakers at 9 stations with different words and concepts that capture the journey of Humboldt County's Chinese immigrants. These words are in both Chinese and English, and they're going to appear on concrete markers as part of Eureka Chinatown project's monument, which will be completed next year. As a memento of the trip, remembrance, we have these paper dragons that have all the different steps on this journey that you will take with us, and we'll have those at the end of visiting all the stations, and also a poem by Daryl Chin. So let's make this journey together as we listen to the stories of our Chinese community from its earliest beginnings to the present. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My station is Hope. In Chinese, Xin Wang. In 1850, I left home in Toisan, in the Guodong province of China, in search for a better life. Opportunity and the promises of rich from the goldfields of California. And there were plenty of other reasons to leave home. There were countless of earthquakes, including large floods and severe droughts. There were epidemics and great famines, and plenty of civil unrest and poverty. The trip across the ocean was not easy. I had to borrow money from family and friends. We were stuffed into a ship which were overcrowded and disease-filled. I didn't know if it was day or night. Many died over the way, and our boat lost hundreds of souls. Hundreds of souls. All you guys would have lost your life. That's how rough the boat ride was. So if you guys were to follow me, we're going to go down this path, and we're going to go across the journey and to the next station. Thank you.
My station is Gold Mountain. In Chinese, Gamsan. Gamsan was a farce, an illusion, fool's gold. We all thought that California was the land of opportunity where gold was to be had in the mountains. But when we arrived, we faced extreme racism. The only work we could find was hard labor with extremely long hours working for low wages and terrible living conditions. We were homesick and longed for our families, familiar foods, and for people who spoke our language. We had no rights, we couldn't own property here, and we were the only immigrant group that couldn't become citizens. On top of that, California passed a foreign miners tax which we had to pay. It brought in over half of California's revenue in that year. This tax and more hostility drove us to form the first Chinatowns, including the one in Eureka.
My station is Chinatown, in Chinese, Huarenji. I moved to Eureka, to a growing Chinatown, built on swampy land with a creek running through it. The buildings were made of scrap lumber and it was overcrowded. 200 people living in one city block. But I found a cultural hub where people spoke Chinese, and there were similar foods, customs, and community. We found work logging, road and railroad building, farming, fishing, and as servants for the growing wealthy class. Some owned laundry businesses and markets. I worked in construction and helped build many roads and bridges in the area. Have you ever driven the Wildcat Road from Ferndale to Petrolia? I helped build that, and it wasn't easy. When the city improved the roads, they cut off the drainage through Chinatown. A pond was formed from the creek and the drainage from 17 outhouses. Scum formed on the surface, and it stunk. Locals called us foul and disease-ridden. The newspapers were filled with anti-Chinese sentiments. Today, a new mural on the historic block of Chinatown offers back the foul image to the Chinese community in a new light entitled Foul.
My station is Expulsion. In Chinese, Pai Hua. I was a Chinatown resident on that fateful day in February 1885 when there was a dispute. A Eureka City councilman died from a stray bullet at the edge of Chinatown. Chinese residents were blamed. An angry mob formed, and within 24 hours, we were driven out of Eureka. They called it a nonviolent expulsion, but gallows were built threatening death to any Chinese who remained more than 24 hours. We were forced into a waterfront warehouse, then put on a steamship, never to return to Humboldt County. I disappeared into the throngs of San Francisco Chinatown and found safety and anonymity. But my heritage has been lost. No one remembers that I lived here, or my story. It wasn't just the accidental death of a white person that banished us from Humboldt. There was a widespread economic depression and false claims of the Chinese competing for skilled jobs and working at a lower pay. Newspapers encouraged mounting prejudice against the Chinese people. We were the scapegoats. We were also the people that grew your fresh vegetables, brought in fresh fish, cleaned your laundry and your homes, cooked your meals. We were integral parts of the community and made a home for ourselves in Eureka. Somewhere here in Arcata was a Chinatown too, like other towns in Humboldt County. Not a trace remains. What would it have been like if we hadn't been driven out?
I speak for Ah Hao and Tai Kim, two women who were part of the Wing Hing lawsuit against the city of Eureka, which was filed in 1886, a year after the expulsion. 55 former Chinese residents of Eureka filed the lawsuit in the name of Wing Hing, a Chinatown merchant. We were rich and poor and men and women, and we sued for the loss of property, businesses, and income from the expulsion. The first reparations suit of its kind. The city of Eureka was able to get the case dropped. The city successfully filed a motion that removed key parts of the case, including the city's role in the expulsion and the loss of the Chinese movable property. The case was postponed and then finally dismissed 3 years later. It was not appealed because earlier rulings of the Supreme Court went against the Chinese because we were alien residents and could not own real estate. We could not own real estate because we could not be citizens. But still, the fight for reparations tells a story of resistance from those of us denied equal rights.
My station is Resilience, in Chinese, Gang Ro. I speak for Charlie Moon. People say I'm the last Chinaman in Humboldt County. I don't know. When I was a teenager, I went to work for Mr. Tom Bear at his Redwood Creek ranch, and I, was hired as a handyman, and I take care of his children. Mr. Bear want his best laborer, so he defended me when a group of vegetarian vigilante, just checking. A bunch of group of vegetarians came by. I'm sorry. The vigilante came, and he defended me from that, so I never have to leave Humboldt County. I married Minnie Tom, who is a Cholula woman from Redwood Creek, and we have 9 children together. Yeah, 9 children. The good old days. Our family have flourished despite being disproportionately exposed to violence, trauma, and murder. Today, we have family members represented in all the local indigenous tribe. Wiyot, Talawa, Cholula, Hupa, Karuk, and Yurok. So I wasn't the only Chinese person here. There was Willie Bow, who lived near Montefiore, and others that live in Hupa and Orleans, up to 250 of us here in the backcountry. They were taken in by the local tribes, and in the words of Tom Bear, were able to pass themselves off as Indian. This story remains untold, another gap in our history.
Again, my station is return, Fan Hui in Chinese. This is about Ben Chin. Ben Chin was the first Chinese American person to settle in Eureka after the expulsion 70 years earlier. Born in Guangdong province, the starting point of many of Eureka's Chinese immigrants from long ago, Ben immigrated to the United States at the age of 8. He was then drafted and served in the U.S. military in the 1940s, and then he worked in the restaurant businesses in Portland and Cottage Grove, Oregon. In 1954, Ben moved to Eureka and opened the Canton Cafe, the first Chinese business in Humboldt County since the expulsion in 1885. Ben got a lot of phone calls telling him to get out of Eureka when he first moved here. His restaurant was initially allowed only one other Chinese cook to work there because there was fear that allowing more Chinese Americans back into the city would be a bad thing. The Chin family worked to establish the beginnings of a Chinese community by sponsoring around 20 Chinese people, many of whom were family members, and they later worked at the restaurant. Ben and his wife Mary Chin stood strong against racism, and their efforts have helped build our community here.
My station is community. In Chinese, Hop Doxy. I am Li Sukying, born in Schenectady, New York, to immigrant parents who came to this country from China for the same reason that the early Chinese who immigrated to this county, to Humboldt, hope for a better life. I'm an American, just like any of you who are born in this country or naturalized are American, right? Regardless of your roots. I'm also a wife, a great-grandmother, a retired Cal Poly professor, a retired scientist, a Unitarian Universalist, and a breast cancer survivor, and a community and climate activist. When I moved to Arcata 50 years ago, there was no Chinese or Asian community here. And as a woman faculty member in an all-male biological sciences department, I didn't always feel at home. I'm grateful for those early welcoming arms of early university fellowship and a few Chinese American friends, either born in this country or immigrants, because of their persistence, the resistance, the resilience, and there has been a gradual return now of the Chinese and a varying, diverse, ethnic Asian community here. And now there is a growing, rich, and diverse Asian American community here. What I've realized over time and circumstance is that finding community, finding home and place, finding belonging is an ongoing, lifelong, morphing process. I'm grateful to be with a loving partner and to have family and treasured extended family here. Knowing that the inhabitants of Eureka's Chinatown came from the same region that my parents came from, I feel even more so that my place is here. My community is here. I belong here, and I am home here.
Hello, my name is Fiona Ronan McNeil, and I'm at the Station for Hope, or Zong Wong in Chinese. At 1 week of age, I was left on the doorstep of a Fuling District Welfare Orphanage in Chongqing, Sichuan, China. Flyers emblazoned with my photo were pasted on bulletin boards asking if they knew who this child belonged to. No one came forward. After a year of living at the orphanage, I was adopted and immigrated to the United States, leaving behind my birth family and my country. My hope for Chinese Americans in Humboldt is that their stories will be seen, heard, and respected. They will be visible. Despite all that was lost due to immigration, discrimination, and exclusion, I hope all Asian Americans will find and form a nurturing community that they can call home, just as I have here in Humboldt County. Thank you.
My name is Darrell Ni Chin. I'm the son of a father who came to America under President Lincoln, who went to Angel Island, and another grandfather who came to Seattle and was listed on his immigration papers as not going to become a laborer. This poem is written to make you and us think. The Water Book of Questions. What brings you here? Why have you stayed? Why are you still here? Were you on that boat? Aye. What do you feel when you learn about this? Who are your people? No, who really are your people? If we all go away, what remains? Mom! About that time, what do you say to family? Mom. One photograph. Are you in it? We are newcomers. Strangers to the language, the food, the stories. What do we know of being expelled, excluded, turned away, delayed, arrested, threatened, spit on, beat up? Speak up. People forget. People deny. Does the land forget? Does the land deny? Does the air remember? How do we talk without words? Do the animals and trees pass down memories like horses standing silently next to one another? What is our language? What is memory? Is it stories or rumors? Is it in a book never opened? A stone in rain? There is no island where this happened. Only a photo of men on a boat. We have no place to show. Why would anyone want a place like this to show everyone, to show the world? Thank you all for coming. This concludes this segment of Migrations.
Gracias a nuestros amigos y amigas de Happy. Thank you to our Happy friends.
Something else. How can we grow more? And then I don't. We were 30 years ago.
Yeah, Bubba.
I want to go on an adventure. Half my life. On an adventure? Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Migrations? My name is Julio Perdido. I'm here representing Outer Space Arcade. We're a collective run, all ages space, doing our best to be a safer space for all sorts of people. Playing some songs about me, about my life, my identity. That song's called Symbols of Hate. And what we're doing today is an act, in defiance of those symbols of hate. So thanks for being a part of it. This next one's called Sin Temor. That means without fear. Como mariposas, las nubes, el viento y el sol. Quiero moverme por el mundo sin temor. Como mariposas, las nubes, el viento y el sol. Quiero moverme por el mundo sin temor. No, this is nothing. I want to love. Love and I want to be free. That's it for me. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This has been Outer Space Arcade. Stop.
Thank you, Julio. Gracias a Julio de Outer Space.
First, before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the land that we're on, to my brothers and sisters at Wiyot country. The land here that they were given by Creator from time immemorial, that they cared for, tended, and loved this land. So with all my heart, I thank them today for allowing us to share this beautiful land and this experience. So walk thou, Wiyot. Ayukwi and greetings. Nek now, Laura Whitewoods. Ne Pichawas, wow. Ewok, Edward White. Essie, Ewok, Herbert Aldridge. Ne Kuchas, Ewok, Eunice White. Essie wow, Ewok, Edna Maves. Ne Chekwau, Ewok, Emil White. Essie Ne Chekwau, Ewok, Sandy White. Arek, Essie Chaw Peck, Wolmechok. Kahak, Kumek, Yurok Tribal Court. Walk thou, walk thou, walk thou, Essie Kenas. So I introduced myself. My name is Laura White Woods. I'm a Yurok elder, And I told you I work in Yurok Tribal Court. I'm a community outreach specialist. I work under the direction of the Honorable Judge Abby Abenati. I told you who my grandparents, my parents were, and where my ancestral villages are. Aurek, and now it's pronounced Oric, and also Chawpek, which is the island, looks like a little island, juts out into Stone Lagoon. You might be familiar with that area. That's where we hold one of our high ceremonies, our jump dance, our world renewal ceremony that's 10 days of prayer, fasting, and singing and dancing. In thinking about this migration, I've thought about it a lot. I had my own personal migration. I lived for 50 years in the state of New Mexico. My dad is a Yurok man. He went to government boarding schools. As soon as he graduated from Sherman Indian Institute down in Riverside, he joined the Army and became a career military man with 20 years active service, World War II and Korea. So as a result, our family moved a lot. When he retired from active military, we wanted to come back to the reservation, come back to Humboldt County. But in the mid-60s, there weren't any jobs. It was hard to find work for him. So he found work in New Mexico. That's how I ended up, that little Yurok family ended up in New Mexico. But when I found myself in a place in my life where I asked myself what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do in my heart was to finally move back to Humboldt County, go to work for my tribe, work for my people, and learn about its history, its culture, the language. I wanted to learn how to weave a basket. I wanted to learn how to smoke a salmon. I had so many things on my to-do list that I couldn't do from New Mexico. I absolutely had to come here to fulfill that dream. That was one of the largest migrations of my life. After 50 years, I had a home, I had a mortgage, I had children, I had grandchildren, I had horses, you name it. I had firmly nailed my feet to that ground in a good way. But now I had this new dream, and I needed a migration, and I needed a migration plan. So whenever there's a migration, you have to release a lot of things. And so that brings me around to the decisions I had to make, what to sell, what to give away, what to bring with me, what do I really need, what do I want to carry with me those 1,500 miles from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Humboldt County. Migration from something is also a migration to something, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional. I'm going to share a story of probably the biggest release that I had. Well, without a doubt, it was the biggest release that I ever experienced. I'm going to share my story with you. In 1998, my youngest son, Jason, who was 16 years old at the time, was accidentally shot to death by another 16-year-old. It was an unfortunate accident in which they were playing with a gun that they did not realize was loaded. And kids being kids, they had apparently, unknown to me, had, it wasn't at my house, it was at someone else's house. The parents had gone camping for the weekend and left a house full of unsupervised teenagers there for the weekend. In a split second, that young woman, that young girl who was also 16 and loved my son with all her heart, pulled out that weapon, and they were teasing each other like they always had. And she lifted that gun up to his, in front of him, and teasingly said, "I should just shoot you." And him being 16 and immortal in his mind, you know, they all are, they think they're going to live forever, jokingly put his forehead to the barrel and his arms out and said, "So shoot me then." That quick, she pulled the trigger. And that was life-changing for me and for my surviving son, his older brother. So fast forward now through the nightmare that is. Nobody should ever lose a child, but it happens. That I had to learn a way to go forward in life without my son. So you have the criminal case, you have all the, and I'm a courthouse girl. I worked 23 years in state court, but it's really different to be on the other side of that event, you know, not be on the judge's side. And I knew all the attorneys, I worked for the judges, it was a process. In the end, this young woman pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter and tampering with evidence. And it was very difficult. Half my family wanted the death penalty for this young woman, and half my family wanted forgiveness and, you know, a chance. And so when it came right down to it, though, the judge was very interested in what I, as Jason's mother, wanted. And much to his credit, he gave me full weight. And by that time, enough time had passed. It took about a year to get through the process. And I had requested probation for her, but not just everyday probation, very, very intensive probation. I wanted her to be monitored very closely. I wanted her to go back to school, wanted her to graduate. But I made it clear at sentencing to the judge that if she messed up, even just a little bit, I would take it as a disrespectful move towards my son, and I would want the sentence to be imposed. I wanted her to know that she was really every day that she was living in a good way was good for her, but also was good for me. Well, she graduated high school, and that night apparently she smoked some marijuana and tested bad the next day. They tested her the next day. So she did do 2.5 years in a girls' correctional facility. I knew that much. The victim's office kept me apprised of that. It wasn't until several years later, when I had already moved to Albuquerque. It was New Year's Eve, and I was honky-tonking and dancing with my boyfriend at the time. And in some bars, I don't know if they do it here, but in New Mexico, they at some point during the evening, there's a whole group of young women that come into the bars with a basket full of long stem roses to sell to you men, and put guilt trips on you to buy a rose for your girlfriend/wife or whoever you're with, right? And so when the young ladies came in with their basket of long stem roses, I noticed them, and I didn't pay any more attention to them. So when we were waiting for our shuttle ride back to our motel, this young woman out of the darkness, and in Albuquerque in January, it's cold, it's snowy, it's icy, it's cold, high desert, right? So I'm out there like shivering, waiting for that ride, and this young woman came up to me, and she said, "I want to give you this, but I don't know if you'll take it." And it was a long stem white rosebud. I'm thinking, well, this is odd. And I looked at her face, and she looked up at me, and it was the young girl who had shot my son to death. I hadn't seen her since sentencing. And she started to cry. And she said, "Laura, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did that night. And I want to do something for you, but I don't know what to do." And I was shocked. It was like the last thing I expected in that moment. And I knew in my heart that whatever I said next, whatever words came out of my mouth next, were going to affect this young woman for the rest of her life. And I'm thinking, oh, what do I say? And she's crying, I'm crying, and it came to me. I think Creator gave it to me. And I said, "Well, Summer, there are 2 things that you can do for me." And she said, "I'll do it. I'll do anything for you. Just name it." I said, "Okay. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to forgive yourself for what happened that night. Because I forgive you. And if I forgive you, you have to forgive you too. If I forgive you, everyone has to forgive you." And she said, "I don't know how, I don't know how to do that. I can't. I can't do that. I said, you just told me you would do anything for me, and so you have to do this. She goes, I don't know how. I said, all right, then follow me. And I grabbed her hands, and I said, repeat after me. Now I'm pulling this out of my hat because here I am in a dark parking lot in the middle of the night and totally unprepared for this. So I held her hands, and I made her repeat after me. I, Summer Mitchell, and she said, I, Summer Mitchell. From this day, on this night, and forevermore, I forgive myself for what happened that night. And she repeated it. And we got all the way through it. I don't remember exactly every word that I said, but I know that's how I started it. And I said, I want you to know that when you let it go, it's gone forever. You can't pick it up, and you can't carry it anymore. It's gone. And we got through that part. And I said, the second thing I want you to do for me is I want you to live a good life. What are you doing in the middle of the city, in the middle of the night, selling roses to drunk people? You're young, you're beautiful, you're intelligent, and you have your whole life ahead of you. I want you to get it together. I want you to go back to school. I want you to live a good life, and I want you to get married and hold your own babies someday. And she said, I can do that for you, Laura. I said, okay. Then before I left, or I think our ride had already come and gone a couple of times by that time, and I'm freezing to death, but it was so important and it was so powerful. And before I left, the ride came back, and before I got in, I gave her my card, and I wrote my personal cell number on the back, and I said, if you ever need me, you call me. And you are always welcome in my home. And to this day, I haven't heard back from her. She's never called me. She didn't come over. But I do. Las Cruces, New Mexico is not that big a town. And I have heard that she did go back home, that she did go back to school. I don't know if she graduated or not. I hope so. But she is married, and she does have 2 little ones of her own. As far as I know, and as far as I believe, she did complete both parts that I asked her to. I hope and I pray that she forgave herself, and I hope she's living her best good life. So my point is, we're all carrying around something that we really don't need to carry around anymore. And what we can do is migrate to a healthier place by leaving things behind, by releasing them. And I have a good tool, and I've done this talk several times to all age groups. And what I want us to do is to contemplate maybe past hurts and transgressions, people that have hurt us, or events. Maybe it's places or things. Maybe it's from our childhood, or maybe it's from recent times. Whatever it is that's on your heart that hurts you. And if you're tired and you're ready to let it go, I invite you under these beautiful ancestor trees in this beautiful Wiyot land to make that decision. There's something or several things I want to let go. I want to release it. I want to migrate from this place free of that, whatever that is. So walk thou, esi chu. Good job. Thank you. I'll see you guys over at the park. You're welcome.
China.